everybody, hope you enjoyed my other 3 videos for these series of games from Mystigo Games, which should be going up on Kickstarter sometime this month of October or possibly early in November. Now again, this is going to be a Kickstarter for all 4 of these card games, and again, as I said earlier, one of the games, The Gallerist, is going to be renamed. Second game, 60 Dwarves, there's going to be more components for it, including the gems, but mostly what you're seeing is pretty much about 90 to 95% pretty much the completed games for all 4 of these games. Now again, as I said before, when it comes to Kickstarter games, especially games that aren't available yet, I don't like doing a full review for a simple fact that things can change. Sometimes things happen, and I just don't like doing full reviews. But I don't mind giving you my impressions and my opinions on the basic gameplay, what I did like, what I didn't like, and what I think should probably change, or what I may think that may interest you the most about some of these games. So basically what we have here is we have a 4-pack of games, 4 very, very different games that kind of meet 4 different kind of criteria. You have the first game, The Gallerist, which is an auctioning game where it's for 2 to 4 players, where players are just going through 12 auctioning rounds. It makes for a very quick game, kind of one of those games that you just keep in your pocket and bring it out during lunchtime and enjoy with some other players. Next thing you have is 60 Dwarves, which is going to be kind of a more deeper strategy game. It is a set collection game that plays only over 12 rounds, like The Gallerist, but it's going to be a little bit of a deeper game. And then you have Trust Me, which is kind of a bluffing game. And then finally you have the game, which is going to be the Dr. Blender's Lab. Now these games are basically, as you can see, they are definitely targeted towards different age groups, different kind of player groups, and different kind of levels of gamer. I mean, you have your hardcore gamers, which like the really deep strategic games, which are probably attracted to games such as 60 Dwarves, and also be attracted to The Gallerist to a little lesser extent, but still definitely be attracted to The Gallerist. Then you have your kind of your family gaming through Dr. Blender's Lab, which is definitely more of your family game. Of course, adults can enjoy playing it, but it's definitely geared towards your younger players, and that's perfectly fine. That's A-okay with me. And then finally you have the final game, which is Trust Me, which is a bluffing game. And you see just from the artwork that's available, this is definitely very, very much a family game, a very much a lighter game. I mean, basically it's a game where players are trying to get rid of all their cards. Not really a deep strategy game, and to be perfectly honest, and this is nothing against the game itself, the game mechanically is perfectly fine, but this is definitely not my style of game. If I didn't have kids to play games like this with, I would definitely probably never play this game if I bought this entire 4-pack. It'd probably be the dust collector out of all these games. And again, that's not saying anything against the game, it's just that's not a style of game I like. I don't enjoy the Sheriff of Nottingham. I don't enjoy games where you're basically hoping beyond hope that somebody's not going to be calling you out. It's basically based on luck. So while I don't want to be negative towards this game, I do have to be honest, out of all 4 of these games, if I had a choice, this would be the last game I would pick. Next game we have is Dr. Blender's Lab. This was more of a family game, and this is a game that my kids actually really, really enjoyed. They had a heck of a lot of fun with it, whether it was just building the people or just how crazy some of the combinations would be as you had these cards just laying out. I know half the time my kids were just having a heck of a time just laughing at the weird combinations that would come out before they started even building these combinations of all these different crazy characters in this game. And the artwork in this game is actually pretty darn good. All the artwork is done very well, makes perfect sense, matches really, really awesomely. And I didn't mention this during the tutorial, but if you have trouble actually matching these different creatures together, especially if you've never heard of some of them, like Kikimora, which is something I've never heard of before, every one of these cards does have a number on the corner letting you know which set they go with. So the Kikimora cards are all number 16. All the Tortoise cards are number 11, and the Musician cards, all of them are number 4. So it can help you put them together, because some of them look like they could match with different sets, but they definitely did that nice touch. And I love the artwork. I love the gameplay. I loved how very quick and simple the game was. The only negative I had about this game is that when you played it with 4 players, you kind of had to argue about who was playing the blocking tokens. And matter of fact, I got to the point with my family, instead of having extensive amount of arguments between the 7-year-old and the 10-year-old, I basically made this homebrew rule that whoever the current player is, the next 2 players in player order, again, when you're playing the 4-player game, they're the ones that got to operate the blockade, and the 4th player didn't have any access to the blocks. Now, it did change up some of the strategies for the game a little bit, but it sure also did a great job of minimizing the arguments between the kids. So I don't know if that's a problem you may encounter. Don't know if that's something you can work around, but it's definitely a workaround I had to do for this game. But even with that workaround, I still had a lot of fun with the game, but I had even more fun as a 3-player game, which is where it seems like this game was really balanced towards with the amount of blockades. Just myself playing with my 2 sons, that's where I had the most fun with this game. Now we come over to the Gallerist. The Gallerist was an auctioning game that plays anywhere from 2 to 4 players. This game was actually really awesome, to the point that if I saw this game in Barnes & Nobles right now, walk in and look at the board games, I would actually pick this game up right off the shelf immediately just as a box to bring home and start playing. This game is actually really solid for an auctioning game. It plays quick. It plays very strongly. I like the different mechanics of how every time you're playing this game, you really are agonizing over every single card you're playing for your auctions. You're basically looking at the cards that are being played out, and you're basically looking at all the other players and deciding, that Mona Lisa, that's 15 victory points. Now, do I play out my forgery card, meaning nobody's going to get the victory points for that? Or do I play out one of my $80 million cards, knowing that somebody else is probably going to place a forgery for it? Or do I play one of my $30 million cards, knowing somebody else is going to play a forgery for it? Or is everybody else thinking that somebody else is going to play a forgery for it, so do I play my $80 million card to get the Mona Lisa? And those were the kind of decisions I thought were really awesome and things I really enjoyed about that game. Finally, the 4th game in the series is going to be 60 Dwarves, and this is probably the game I enjoyed the most out of all 4 of these games. I really enjoyed the deeper strategy game. I enjoyed the future planning, how you're seeing the future row of dwarves coming up, so you know exactly what dwarves you're working towards, what dwarves are coming, and also start looking at all the other players and seeing what sets of collections that they're starting to work towards, and also seeing what color of dwarves are slowly being removed from the game as they're being discarded. Because one thing I didn't explain to you in the tutorial is that the different colors of dwarves have a certain amount of those dwarf cards that exist in the game. For example, there's like 24 of the yellow cards, if I remember correctly, all the way down to only 6 of the blue cards. So you know the different cards have different rarities on them. So tracking the different rarities of the cards, watching what the other players are gathering, watching what kind of gems they're gaining, seemed really cool to me, and something I really enjoyed. I'm actually looking forward to the final release of this game, which is going to have the resource tokens, which is going to make the game even better, so you're not playing the game with a pen and paper with some scratch paper. So out of all these games, in order, the amount of enjoyment I got out of these games, I thought 60 Dwarves was the best game out of the bunch. I thought the Gallerist was my second favorite, but again, if I had to choose between just these 2 games, the 60 Dwarves and the Gallerist, they both were pretty much games I really enjoyed, to the point that, like I said earlier, if I walked into a Barnes & Nobles or a local game store or something like that and I saw these 2 games on the shelf, after having played them, I would buy them pretty much immediately right then and there. Following the 3rd game in the series, the Dr. Blender's Lab, I would suggest to anybody with families. One caveat, like I said earlier though, as a 4-player game, has that one negative that people need to fight over these block tokens. If you're just one parent playing with 2 children or 2 parents with 1 children, you can easily avoid that by playing a 3-player game, and you'll never ever notice that problem. Or if you happen to have a 4-player game, you can just listen to people argue for a little bit, or you just simply house rule that player 2 or 3 in the order, the ones after the person who has the current turn, are the only people who have access to the block token, and the 4th player is pretty much left out. Not really a big idea, not a big problem, but it is going to minimize those arguments. And then finally, we have the Trust Me game, which was my least favorite of the group, and it wasn't anything to do with the mechanics of the game. It's just a style of game I don't enjoy. I don't enjoy Sheriff Nottingham. I don't enjoy games where you're basically guessing. I do enjoy bluffing games, but I don't enjoy guessing plus bluffing games like Sheriff Nottingham. And that's what I felt like I was playing the entire time I played Trust Me. You're basically saying, okay, do I believe you? Do I think that you're telling the truth? Do I think that you're actually putting out the right cards or not? And if I believe you, I'm going to not call your bluff. If I don't believe you, I'm just going to call your bluff, and hopefully, hope beyond hope, I'm going to be lucky enough to pull the right card. It just seemed a little bit too lucky for me. I can definitely see it being a great game for lighter gamers, a great game for families or people who enjoy just a lighter, quicker game and enjoy that kind of gameplay mechanics. Again, it wasn't for me. Nothing wrong with the game mechanically, it just wasn't my style of game. Overall, I think this is a pretty darn package. If you're getting all 4 of these games from the Kickstarter, I would definitely jump in for 3 of the games very easily. And again, like I said, if I saw these 2 games in the store or retail store, I would pretty much buy them right then and there. I hope you enjoyed this video series for Mystigo Games, as 4-pack of games are going to be coming out. Again, this Kickstarter should be coming out sometime in October or early November, looking at all 4 of these games. If you're interested in these games, make sure you're keeping an eye on Kickstarter and check out for these games. I hope you enjoyed this video series. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the YouTube comments down below. You can also feel free to email me at offtheshelfboardgamereviews, that's OTSBGR @gmail.com. As always, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing.